great leader that I've ever been around, and Matthew is a perfect illustration of that. There's extreme ownership and there's accountability, and I think you can always really be able to say, all right, first and foremost, let's look at what I can do to try to help, put ourselves in position to do my job to the best of my ability, and how that helps the collective, and that's where I feel like I'm not playing, but some of the decisions and situations and circumstances you're putting guys in, you can absolutely be better. I expect to be better, but that's what guys love about Matthew. I mean, you'll never see a guy, when you look at the way Matthew handles himself, that isn't an excuse maker. I've heard it said before, I think excuses are tools of the incompetent, and Matthew is the furthest thing from that. He's got great ownership, and I think that's why people want to follow him, is because of the way that he handles, stays humble in the great moments, which he sure has had a handful of those, and then in the moments that we can be better, he owns it, and now we can move on, and he's a freaking stud.
So I got to tell you something. I'm a little tired today. Dragging a little tea. Don't feel the best. It's okay. It's okay. Just life, right? Sometimes you feel great, sometimes you don't feel great. And I was like, all right, I'm going to record clips. I got to record clips. I'm like looking at the time and I'm like, all right, come on. And I know there's a clip from, ironically, about Matthew Stafford that I want to do. Of course, Seahawks, I want to make sure I hit all the main teams, want to try to find some of the predictions that people are making, Colin, Nick, etc. But I'm like, all right, come on, you got to wake up, you got to get going. And I was laying down and I saw this clip. I didn't see the whole clip. I just saw leadership starts with extreme ownership and accountability. And I saw the very beginning where Sean McVay brings up accountability. I jumped up so quickly, I never got to this chair. Opened up my computer, set up my mic, and set record so fast. So fast. May we never forget when I brought up accountability from a coaching perspective and a player perspective. Never forget that the masses were so furious, so angry. How dare I talk about accountability? How dare I had to make a whole separate video about it, specifically interacting with Lamar Jackson fans. And then, ironically, Colin started bringing up accountability a little bit, I think, within the Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson. And I said, oh, look at that accountability. And now we have one of the greatest coaches we've come across in Sean McVay talking about extreme ownership and accountability. And it's funny because I got a recent comment and said, oh, you only talk about accountability with certain quarterbacks, not other quarterbacks. Okay, sure. Whatever you say. Whatever you say. I've been hit over the head a lot with those attacks and those, whether it be bias, whether it be even more disgusting accusations. And here we have going into the NFC Championship game with Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and he's talking about ownership and accountability. I'd say that it's because a lot of people just haven't played or haven't been around real coaches, like legitimate professional coaches who get paid to be a coach rather than just some dude's dad. But then as someone who said they played and coached for 15 years or whatever said, you're wrong. And I was like, I guess it just goes to show you that there can be a lot of confusion, whether you played in the pros or whether you never played a day in your life. But this is what I keep trying to preach about accountability and the importance of accountability. And even if you're a pretty accountable person, even if you're already a great leadership, you have great leadership, you still need a coach to hold you accountable. It's so easy to slide. It's so easy. Why do you think these guys have to practice every day? They already know what to do. They already learned their lessons. They already understand their mechanics. Why do they have to practice? Once you learn it, once you know it. Once I learned the word the, I don't have to keep reading the to understand what the is. Once you learn the alphabet, you just know it. A, B, C, D, E, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T. If you know the reference, you know the reference. You're welcome here. But here's the reality. You have to keep hitting that reset button. You have to keep refreshing. And for my spiritual OGs out there, you know this. That's why you got to go out there and do it every Sunday or Friday or Saturday, whatever day you choose, whatever week you choose. It's why you have holidays every single year. It's why you can go to church or again, where whatever you subscribe to. You got to be reminded, oh, right, I got to be nice to my neighbor. All right, I got to manage my emotions. Oh, right. I got to be kind instead of angry. It's very easily, you forget pretty easily. It's accountability. That's literally what it is. You're taught at like 3 years old, be nice, don't lie, be kind, take a deep breath, control your emotions, and yet you still need to be reminded. Literally every single day, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, dude, don't be a jerk. And it's like, oh yeah, right, don't be a jerk. But it's so easy. It's accountability. And people who struggle with that, I really don't know what to tell you, but I wanted to highlight this clip so badly because we're talking about a world-class coach, an elite coach in Sean McVay, combined with an elite quarterback achieving success at the highest levels. And he's talking about accountability. Now, funny enough, this still needs a lot of nuance and needs to bring it out because I don't even agree with everything he just said, where he just said, oh, excuses are, something of the incompetent or something. And it's like, well, that's easy for you to say, Sean McVay, because you're a world class coach working with world class uh, athletes and you're succeeding at the highest level. You're the coach of the Los Angeles Rams getting paid millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. Okay, Matthew Stafford is your quarterback. You didn't win with Jared Goff. You got rid of him and said he wasn't good enough, therefore give me Stafford. Technically, that's an excuse. So that's why it's like, you got to be careful. Like, I always make the joke before about, like, you can't just listen to, some tech billionaire who says, like, you just can't give up. And it's like, well, bro, you're a super genius. It's a little different for you. I started my first company when I was 18 years old. So can you. It's like, okay, sure, whatever you say. So even extreme ownership I can take issue with, because that can take you to a dark path. If you take extreme ownership for every single thing that goes right or wrong in your life, you got some problems. I promise you. I used to do that because that's like a pop psych type thing. About like take ownership for everything. Every success and failure is because of your actions. If you fail, it's because you could do something better. And it's like, whoa, there's a lot of other things that are out of your control. Literally, just go read the Serenity Prayer again for my spiritual ogs out there. Like, let's grant me the serenity to be able to know the difference between the things that I can control and the things that I can't control, right? To accept the things I can't, the things that I can and can't control, and the wisdom to know the difference. So even something like extreme ownership needs to be put into context. Patrick Mahomes is a perfect example. Last Super Bowl, they lost the Super Bowl. It was not his fault. And yet, if you take extreme ownership too far, he could look in the mirror and say, if I was better, we would have won. And it's like, whoa, Pat, you've accomplished a ton in your life. That was a tough game. Your team was just nowhere near as good as the Eagles. Winning that game was always going to be incredibly brutal. Do not put that on your shoulders. So again, it all needs nuance, but you don't always get a lot of nuance when you're talking with people who have achieved at the highest level because their success, their path forward is so specific. Tom Brady has a lot of great things he says. He also says a lot of stuff where you're like, all right, you're Tom Brady, bro. You won ring after ring after ring after ring. You can talk about your humble beginnings. Let's be serious here. It's really not that humble when we think about it, okay? You started winning at the highest level pretty quickly, pretty early on in your career. Like, I don't care where you were drafted. It doesn't matter. Within 2 minutes, you were balling and having insane amounts of success. So it's just like, again, context. I always talk about that context, context, context. But just because you need context doesn't mean you throw out the message and the accountability. Knowing the things that you need to be better at. Holding yourself accountable. Having a coach hold you accountable and other people accountable. Let me be very clear. Patrick Mahomes needs to be held accountable. Josh Allen needs to be held accountable. Matthew Stafford needs to be held accountable. Jalen Hurts needs to be held accountable. Joe Burrow needs to be held accountable. You realize that a lot of the quarterbacks that have failed and struggled with accountability, even if they've had levels of success. But if it's just been a little wonky, we can point to accountability issues. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, those are the two that come right off the top because they're the ones that have had the most problems with their coaches. Both those quarterbacks have had public issues with their coaches and they've had uneven careers. I mean, heck, Baker blamed the like physical therapy staff, which is still insane to me. And again, sometimes that is the answer. Sometimes the coach is the reason, and it makes sense. But there's still an accountability factor, and you're talking to someone. The reason why I emphasize accountability so much and say it pretty confidently and pretty fearlessly is because like I'm hyper accountable to the point where I do take it to the extreme too much, and it can cause problems because I do have to figure out my automatic default is like, what did I do wrong? How did I mess up this interaction? Even if it's just like a regular conversation with someone, with my mom, my dad, brother, whatever. I'm just like, how could have I, okay, that took a turn. What could have I done differently? And then trying to figure out, okay, well, I tried or what did they bring to the table that helped cause this? And it could be exhausting. It can be exhausting. Like I said, that's a tricky thing to navigate. But when you're talking about something a little bit more practical, like sports, that's very much like, are you putting in the work? Are you putting in the reps? Are you studying? Are you prepared? Right? They talk about preparation in sports all time. Preparation, preparation, preparation. That's why I think Hard Knocks is so great, because it does show people who've just never really played, like the work that you have to put in, the preparation that you have to put in. Now, it romanticizes it a little bit because it makes it look like you just like listen to pump up music and you just put in the work, and it's like it's a grind. I just wish I just watched an old Andy Reid clip where it was when he was a coach with the Eagles and he talked about that. And again, I don't know if he's still like this, but he talked about that. These players, man, they just want to get out there and play. So he goes, I got all the things that I got to teach them are on like a 3A5 card, because it's like 15 minutes I talk, and then it's like out the door, we got to get to work. And it is true. Like that's great self-awareness, because especially when you're younger, you're just like, I just want to get out there. Anytime you're sitting in a room and the coach is talking to you, you're like, oh, come on, man. Can't we just play? Like, you don't want to do any of that other stuff? You really don't. You're like, what? When a coach says, bring a notebook and a pen, you're like, what? Why? What do I need a notebook for right now? Like, no. Like, you're so resistant. Especially if you played, the first time you're probably ever going to be introduced to that is probably high school. And you're probably just going to be like in a regular classroom, and you're like, a coach says, tomorrow bring a notebook and a pencil. And you're like, what? No, I just spent all day with a notebook and a pencil. I'm here to play. Like, what are you talking? Like, what are you talking about? I don't want to do that right now. And at least once you are in that level, then in college, then pros, like, you're going to you're going to understand it more now. You're like, no, man, I just want to play. I just want to play. But yeah, I think things like this are so powerful and so important. That's why I keep repeating it. That's why I keep emphasizing it, because it's something that I've recognized, and I've talked about this a lot because it continues to come up, honestly, like essentially daily, is the lack of understanding of just how important coaching is. And the messaging and things like this go so a long way, go such a long. Okay, I will tell you this. Sean McVay's situation, he's very fortunate to be able to be as great of a coach that he is, have the opportunities that were given to him, and being able to coach the Rams and have access to great quarterbacks and a great roster and a great GM and owner and all of that. But what he's been able to do with that is not accidental. It's very fortunate, because a lot of the other stuff were out of his control. And it just was what it was. He could not even have Matthew T. That deal just could have just not gotten done. Then there you go. He might never have a Super Bowl, or maybe he's got 5 Super Bowls, because with him and Jared Goff is actually maybe it was like the unluckiest thing ever that he decided to do that. And actually Goff with McVay was a 6 months away from being absolutely unleashed in a way that the Lions can't. Again, I'm not saying that's true, but it's just like probably not true. But regardless, very fortunate that that deal was even able to get done. Fact, he could have gotten Matthew Stafford year 1. Matthew Stafford blows out his ACL. Boom. Now what? No idea. Matthew Stafford had back problems going into this game, going into this season. Maybe it just really continued to be really bad, and he just couldn't cut it, right? Like, those are all things that are out of your control. And so there is a lot of luck and goodwill and good fortune to even be in this situation. But what you do with it in that moment, what you do with that opportunity, that is where the ownership and accountability really shines. really shines. So, just wanted to highlight that these types of conversations I always find really fascinating, really interesting, especially at this point in the season. We only got 4 true teams to talk about. Can only rehash the same take so many times. Do you believe Stidham will outduel Drake May? Believe Sam Darnold will be great. What's at stake for Matthew Stafford? I don't know, man. Everything. Nothing. Everything. These conversations are interesting. These conversations are so much more valuable than I think we give it credit for. So, just wanted to post that, even though I know it'll get a lot less of, views and engagement and conversation, but doesn't matter. Sometimes you just got to keep pushing. Accountability, extreme ownership. But let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.